So much for that, Lisa. That was a great talk. Our second presenter is Zoraida Velasco. Zoraida is the co-founder of Dinnergy, a social enterprise and app that strives to apply carbon budgeting principles to real-world situations and provide real-time insights for everyday decision-making. Zoraida is a full-time dual-degree graduate student between the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University in Medford, Massachusetts, and IE Business School in Madrid, pursuing a Master of Arts in Law and Diplomacy and an International BA with concentrations in Sustainable Development Diplomacy and Corporate Social Responsibility. Beginning her career as an associate programmer for the World Affairs Council, she later joined the International Business Development Department of the Metro Orlando Economic Development Commission. In 2010, Ms. Velasco was recruited by the Executive Office of Governor Charlie Crist to serve as Governor's Special Assistant for the Central Florida and Tampa Bay regions. In early 2011, after a change of governorship, newly elected Orange County Mayor Teresa Jacobs called upon Ms. Velasco to serve as Special Assistant for Economic Development and International Affairs. In this capacity, she was responsible for the development and execution of economic development initiatives and managed strategic relationships with local, state, federal, and foreign governments, as well as with other economic development organizations to develop programs and incentives that help grow, retain, and attract businesses. Ms. Velasco was born in Bogota, Colombia, but grew up across Latin America in Colombia, Peru, and Venezuela. Ms. Velasco is the youngest recipient to ever obtain a Beacon Award, celebrating diversity. She is the recipient of the Women of Achievement Award from the Women's Executive Council and La Prensa's newspapers Mujeres Destacadas Award, Distinguished Women Award. Please welcome Zoraida Velasco. Zoraida.
Thank you. Is this on? Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah, there we go. All right. Oh, no fan for me. Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Thanks for being here. So I want you to take a look at this image. Some of you may recognize it. It's an aerial view of California. I want you to keep it in mind throughout my presentation. Note that to the right of the image are the snow-capped mountains of Sierra Nevada, and in the middle you'll see a lot of green. Throughout my life, due to a myriad of reasons, I've lived in 6 different countries, always seeking a better future with my family. And that exposure to new social environments constantly led me to quickly realize that I either learned to speak up or I was going to be left behind. And that is exactly how I am in front of you today. I spoke up. One day earlier this year, I went knocking on the door of Ann Rappaport, a professor at Tufts University, where I attend grad school, whom I had never met before, but I was interested in her experience in corporate social responsibility. And so during my conversation with Ann about a million things, I said to her, how cool would it be if people could measure their carbon footprint based on the items they consumed? And so Ann said, you have to meet Peter. Peter has the same idea you do, and you guys have to work together. Granted, I had no idea that what I had just told Ann was actually an idea. But she went ahead and introduced me to Peter. And Peter's another graduate student at Tufts. And we went on to put together a team, and we won our university's energy competition. That gave us funding to implement a pilot program at the school. You see, throughout my life, I've learned not to be afraid to ask questions, to knock on doors, to speak up, and to advocate for what I'm truly passionate about. And so that's how I'm here, right? I just went knocking on somebody's door. I didn't even know I was going to end up telling her an idea. It was just a comment. but it's something that I'm passionate about. And so as I've learned through this journey, I've always been very in touch with nature, the environment. Started the first recycling program at my first job. But I've never really had formal training in STEM fields, in science, technology, education, and math. And Dinnergy, which is what I'm going to talk to you about, actually entails all 4 of those fields. Aside from maybe polishing up my math skills for the graduate admissions exam, that is really the extent of my experience in the field. But I'm here today. And so I want you to look at that picture, and then if we can go, I don't know where the clicker is here. Can we go to the next slide? There we go. So the picture on the top is the one that we were looking at earlier. That picture was taken in January. The picture on the bottom is the same picture of California. That picture was taken in January as well, of 2014. Now, when do you think the picture on the top, with all the snow and the greenery, which clearly is missing on the bottom, when was that taken? 5 years ago, maybe, before that one? 10, 30 years ago? I think somebody said it. That was last year, or a year before. So the one on the bottom is 2014, January this year. The one on the top was only a year before. And so that is what is happening to California and to many, many places around the world. And so we need to realize that our carbon footprint is not just the vehicle we drive or switching off the lights on our way out of a room. Yes, those things are important, and I encourage you to continue to do them if you are doing them. But there's more to that. Did you know that 14% of human emissions come from agriculture? Think about what you had for dinner this last week. As good Latinos, it probably included rice and beans, and beef, chicken, or pork. So if we switch to the next slide, I want you to look at this infographic from Mother Jones. The second item from the top, let's say, is beef. According to this, producing 1 pound of beef is the equivalent of emitting 60 pounds of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And so that probably doesn't mean much to you, but it's about driving 64 miles. If you eat beef 3 times a week, every week for a whole year, you would be driving a little over 10,000 miles. That is the same as getting in your car here today, driving to Florida, where home is for me, from Florida, driving to Alaska, and then driving back to Mountain View. Now that is a long, long way. Now, I'm not here to guilt trip you over eating beef, because we know we all love our beef and our chicken, or to try to get you to eat a whole pound of tofu, which is the bottom one that barely has any carbon emissions. Plus, eating a whole pound of tofu probably has some health implications you'd want to be concerned about. But the point is to bring awareness of the fact that everything we do, everything we eat, everything we consume has an impact on the environment. And so you're probably wondering, how did the piece of meat that I had for dinner last week actually emit carbon dioxide? Foods and items impact the environment in very many different ways. So if we take the example of meat and beef, you take the cow, right? So was the cow corn-fed? Where was that corn cultivated? Were the tractors used to cultivate the corn running on diesel, on gas? Were they electric? The slaughterhouse where the cow was processed, how much energy did it consume when it packaged all the meat? When the meat was transported to the store where you bought it, how did it get there? By train, by truck, by boat? And I can go on and on about all the different stages of a life cycle of that piece of meat that you had this week for dinner. And so that is why we created Dinnergy. Dinnergy is a social movement that we're trying to use technology to leverage social change. We're trying to promote social change through leveraging technology. Dinnergy will be an application that you can download onto your phone, that just how there are apps that help you measure your caloric intake and keep track of how many calories you eat a day, Dinnergy will allow you to know what the environmental impact of the foods you eat are. So just as when you go to a restaurant or when you go shopping, you want to check on your phone, well, how many calories will that be? Or you kind of have a budget for your calories. When you're at the store, eventually, and this is what we hope to achieve, foods will be labeled based on the impact that they had on the environment. And so as consumers, we could make a more educated decision when we buy the things that we buy. And we're starting with food because, well, we all have to eat, right? So we all have to buy food. But this could be done with anything. Anything that's produced always has an impact on the environment. It's not just, like I said earlier, the car you drive or whether you turn off the lights or you keep the AC on. At Dinnergy, we're trying to make the world a better place. And to do that, we need people like you, who are motivated, who care, and who are willing to work together for a common goal. There's an ancient proverb that says, we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. And so it is our responsibility to make sure we return this earth to our children in a better condition that we received it. The theme of today's conference is STEM. So I encourage you to continue to advocate for STEM education. Dinnergy entails all of that. And I'm educating myself on those fields now. And so for those high school students that are in the crowd, make sure you challenge yourself on science, technology, engineering, and math, because I wish I had. And I wish I would have had the opportunity to come to a conference like this and have been exposed to it, because maybe I would be in a different place, but I'm happy where I am now. And Angelica, thank you for the opportunity to be here, because through this I hope to encourage you to make a change and to help promote STEM education. Did you know, and I think one of the speakers earlier said it, the purchasing power of Latinas this year was $1.5 trillion. It's estimated to go up to it was 1.2 this year. It's estimated to go up to 1.5 next year. That's the buying power of 52 million people in this country. And according to a study by Nielsen, 86% of the purchasing decisions in Hispanic homes are made by Latinas. And so as our influence in this country becomes stronger, it is our responsibility to become better educated consumers. And Dinnergy is just one tool that will help you do that. If we can go to the next slide, I was in New York. Next slide, I don't know where the button is. Oh, there we go. I was in New York 2 weeks ago with 400,000 of my closest friends at the People's Climate March. And thank you. And so during that march, I saw this sign. And it says, I used to say someone should do something about that. And then I realized I am someone. We are all someone. With all of the information you're going to walk away with here today about STEM, you can all make a difference as well. So why not start by joining the Dinnergy movement? Thank you.